Time to onset of fatigue is thus highly inherently individual, and in a body functioning normally without disease or disorder is dependent on conditioning efficacy and feeding strategies. That means properly trained and properly fed. Acute fatigue has a purpose. The onset of fatigue acts as a protective mechanism against the disturbances in homeostasis that occur during exercise, such as lactate production and excess heat conditions that temporarily alter the body's internal environment. The purpose of fatigue is to bring about cessation of exercise by means of producing a deeply uncomfortable state so that the body can begin to rest and recuperate, or recharge its batteries, as it were. Progressively, repeatedly and regularly exercising to the point of mild to moderate acute fatigue is necessary, however, to stimulate cardiovascular conditioning and muscular strengthening as a physiological adaptation. Continuing exercise while acutely fatigued carries injury risks. Fatigue must be strictly controlled to minimize injury risk. A fatigued horse may lack concentration and coordination, thus the greatest risk is stumbling and loss of balance, as muscles struggle to work adequately. And be aware that tense horses will not be breathing as deeply as could be required for the activity, and may thus experience difficulty in oxygenating their bodies optimally. These cases need frequent breaks as opportunities to recover. In the long term, their overall progress will be inhibited if that tension is not addressed. Without restful recovery periods between exertions, harmful overtraining can be the only outcome. The body undergoing physical conditioning requires sufficient time to adopt and adapt. Not just as a whole, but each tissue type varies in the time taken to adapt to the new demands to be regularly placed upon it. To be clear, exercise-induced adaptation occurs during relaxational recovery periods. It's not how hard the body's worked, it's often how hard it's rested that brings about optimal fitting. These are necessary both within and between exercise sessions. But there is a caution on this. Although horses can retain aerobic fitness with up to 30 days rest from exercise, their bone mass can be reversed or remodeled in a very short layoff because bone requires loading to maintain its strength. Musculoskeletal integrity is therefore at risk, and work should be reintroduced progressively. Rest is also required for the assimilation of learning so that information can be absorbed and recalled. So now we're beginning to see that pushing a body too hard has little benefit in terms of fitting or learning. A review of research by Sales et al. 2009 focusing on human athletes has found that strength gains within the exercise session are best achieved when the rest period is 2 to 5 minutes between sets of repetitions of exertions and 1 to 2 minutes for hypertrophy, power and stamina. So rest is therefore as much of a priority as exertion. Recovery periods thus require to be of a sufficient quality, involving a reduction in environmental as well as internal stress, both physical and psychological. And quality relaxation for the equine is typically that which mimics the natural state, such as paddock turnout and companionship, rather than the confines of prolonged stabling. Many appear to appreciate background music with rhythms that promote a restful state, but research has shown that the rhythmical, classical and country music, rather than jazz or rock music, which has fast tempo and a minor musical key, which is, in other words, is a bit random, doesn't quite match the body rhythms of relaxation. Tell that to young people. Rest can also take the form of engaging in a different activity, or even the same activity but performed at a lower impact, or even in a different environment with differing low impact demands, or without a rider, who'd have thought it, or in hand, or loose, either on the flat or over jumps. And creative cross-training is ideal for resting targeted body tissues as well as for a broader conditioning effect. Working on differing surfaces can provide tissue rest opportunities as well as producing varying tissue geometry development and opportunistic proprioception enhancement. So being creative as possible can provide a much more enriched conditioning and learning experience. Psychologically, if the rest period is rewarding and pleasurable, the work period can be more easily tolerated. Similarly, if the exercise aftercare is immediately followed up with a warm rinse and a dry off under heat lamps or sunshine together with relaxing back massage, the exerciser may well be more compliant with the exercise session next time. Wherever it is possible and practical and safe, dismount. That's a very good form of resting during or after the session or towards the end of the session, and end the final phase of the exercise session in hand. This could demonstrate a measure of empathy to the horse, linking in with helping to motivate them for the next session. And be aware that several days rest or light work may be required to avoid continued hard work coinciding with delayed onset of muscle soreness or DOMS. And that the resultant muscle tension may impact on breathing if not resolved in the longer term. It can also set up compensatory gait if not fully resolved when the next session is begun within that 2 days. I just want to go back to the second point there, which is not something that everybody thinks about, but when they're training a horse, the horse is not stupid. If they know that they're going to get some great massage or some great salon treatment after the exercise, which often is what we get after exercise, then if they're treated well, not just
turned out or put in a box. If you can get your clients to introduce something pleasurable to them at the end, even if they buy some cheap mechanical massagers, then that can have the horse almost looking forward to the exercise session.